Physio Control is pleased to present the following video in service demonstrating the use, operation, and maintenance of the LIFEPAK 10 defibrillator monitor. We'll begin with an overview of the device, then discuss procedures for patient monitoring, defibrillation, synchronized cardioversion, pacing, and documentation. Viewing the LIFEPAK 10 from above, you'll notice the main power switch, controls for the optional non-invasive pacer, strip chart recorder, 3 interchangeable LIFEPAK battery packs, and the defibrillator paddle controls. The side panel closest to the defibrillator paddles contains the ECG cable input connector. The opposite side panel houses the auxiliary connector and the non-invasive pacing cable connector. The bottom of the LIFEPAK 10 features an incline bail that can improve the viewing angle if the LIFEPAK 10 is placed below eye level. To power up the LIFEPAK 10, place the battery packs into the battery wells. Turn the power selector switch to the first battery position. The LIFEPAK 10 will perform a 5-second self-test by illuminating the status display and all indicator lights. If the self-test detects a failure in the device, a fault indicator will illuminate. If this happens, contact a qualified service representative. The power switch has 3 battery positions which correspond to the 3 battery wells above the switch. There's also an auxiliary power switch which allows line operation. The power switch's auxiliary power position is only used when the optional auxiliary power module is supplying AC or DC line power to the LIFEPAK 10. Please refer to the auxiliary power module operator's manual for details. Generally, a battery with 100% capacity will allow the LIFEPAK 10 to monitor for approximately 45 minutes. When the battery charge is depleted, the low battery light will illuminate above the power switch and 3 short tones will sound. Always carry spare, fully charged batteries for prompt replacement of a depleted battery. As soon as a low battery tone and light are detected, advance the power switch clockwise to the next battery position. The nickel-cadmium batteries in your LIFEPAK 10 must be exercised and maintained. Your Physio Control battery support system can be used for both charging and exercising your battery packs. Proper battery pack maintenance can be very important to the operation of this instrument. Therefore, you should consult your operator's manual to obtain the necessary information on proper care and maintenance of NiCad batteries. From the factory, the LIFEPAK 10 powers up in lead 2 with an ECG gain of 1 millivolt per centimeter. To monitor a patient through ECG electrodes, plug the 3-lead patient cable into the cable receptacle on the right side of the device and connect the cable snaps to ECG electrodes. Place the right arm electrode on the patient's upper right chest below the clavicle, the left arm electrode on the upper left chest below the clavicle, and the left leg electrode on the lower left torso. Push the lead select button to obtain lead 1, 2, or 3. The lead selection will be indicated on the status display. Also, heart rates of 20 to 295 beats per minute are displayed in the upper left-hand corner of the status display. If the heart rate does not appear, adjust ECG size up or down until it does. To monitor through the paddles, you must place lead select in the paddles mode and apply defibrillation gel to the paddles. Place the paddles firmly on the patient's chest in the apex sternum position to obtain a lead 2 ECG signal. The monitoring control buttons are located directly below the cardioscope. The size of the ECG signal can be increased or decreased by pushing the ECG size button. Push the right side of the button to increase the ECG size and push the left side to decrease it. When you reach the upper or lower limit of the ECG size adjustment, 3 tones will sound. ECG size is documented on the strip chart recorder. The QRS volume control powers up at minimum volume. Push the right side of the button to increase the QRS volume and push the left side to decrease it. Pushing the Cal button will superimpose a 1 millivolt calibration signal that can be used to compare ECG amplitude. Push the Freeze button to suspend the ECG signal on the cardioscope. When the Freeze button is released, real-time ECG will return to the display. The recorder is a thermal array recorder. To record the patient's ECG, push the Record button to start the recorder. It operates in a 3-second delay mode and annotates time, date, ECG lead, ECG size, and heart rate. The annotation is updated every 20 seconds while the recorder is running. To stop the recorder, push the Record button again. To load the paper, pull upward on the front of the recorder case to open it. Remove the empty paper spool and insert a new roll of paper, grid side up. Pull out a short length of paper and close the recorder case. To close the case, pull the back of the case up and in and push the front of the case back. To avoid fading of annotation and ECG tracings, follow these simple guidelines. Tape may be used on the front, but do not place it on the annotation and ECG tracings. Double-sided tape or adhesives may be used anywhere on the back of the paper. Do not store strips in plastic sleeves and avoid prolonged exposure to sunlight. As with other physio-controlled defibrillators, the controls are labeled 1, 2, 3 to guide the user quickly through the defibrillation procedure. Number 1, turn the power on and observe the patient's ECG signal either through paddles or ECG electrodes. Remove the paddles from their wells by sliding them back. Apply defibrillation gel to the paddles. Number 2, dial in the appropriate energy level on the top of the sternum paddle. Number 3, push the charge button on the apex paddle. A ramping tone will be heard as the LIFEPAK 10 charges up and the charge light will blink. The energy available meter on the status display will scroll up to the selected energy level. Once the LIFEPAK 10 is fully charged, a brief tone will sound and the light will hold steady. Place the paddles firmly on the patient's chest. Place the sternum paddle to the right of the patient's sternum, just below the clavicle. Place the apex paddle on the patient's lower left chest near the cardiac apex. After warning others to stand clear of the patient and bed, push both paddle discharge buttons simultaneously to discharge the defibrillator. When the defibrillator discharges, the status display will blank briefly and the available energy meter will return to 0 joules. When the defibrillator is charged, energy is available for approximately 1 minute, and then the energy will internally dump. If defibrillation is not necessary and you need to internally dump the stored energy before 1 minute, change the energy level on the sternum paddle to disarm the defibrillator. For pediatric defibrillation, slide the pediatric paddles over clean adult paddles. Select the appropriate energy for the size of the child. After applying gel to the paddles, place them in the apex sternum position. For neonates with very small chests, the pediatric paddles may be placed in the anterior-posterior position, holding the infant on its side with the paddles. To perform synchronized cardioversion with the LIFEPAK 10, connect the 3-lead ECG cable and electrodes as described in the monitoring procedure. Push the Sync button. The message Sync will flash on the status display with each detected QRS complex. Bold sync markers should appear on each QRS. If the sync markers do not appear, or appear elsewhere on the ECG, adjust ECG size up or down until they appear on each QRS complex. If adjusting ECG size does not help, select another lead or reposition the ECG electrodes. Apply defibrillation gel to the paddles. Select energy and push the charge button. When the defibrillator is charged, push and hold both paddle discharge buttons until the defibrillator discharges. If the recorder is running, it will annotate time, date, energy selected, and sync after discharge. Immediately following the discharge, the defibrillator automatically reverts to the asynchronous defibrillation mode. If a second synchronized shock is needed, push the sync button again to activate the sync mode. Non-invasive pacing is indicated as a temporary treatment for symptomatic bradycardia or asystole. It may be used as an emergency procedure during cardiac arrest or when bradycardia has failed to respond to atropine. Pacing may also be used in standby situations in place of a transvenous pacemaker and as an alternative method of pacing when invasive pacing is risky or undesirable. During cardiac arrest, follow the usual advanced cardiac life support protocols for airway, breathing, circulation, and drug therapy. To begin pacing, connect the 3-lead patient cable and select lead 1, 2, or 3. You cannot pace while in the paddles mode. If you try to do so, a leads message will appear on the status display accompanied by 3 tones. If this occurs, connect the patient cable and select a lead. A leads message can also appear if the pacing cable is not connected to the pacing electrodes, or if the pacing electrodes are not attached to the patient. Next, insert the pacing cable into the receptacle on the left side of the LIFEPAK 10. It must be firmly seated to operate. Connect the pacing cable to the quick-pace pacing electrodes. Match the connector color with the electrode color. Make sure that the connectors are firmly snapped into place. Place electrodes on the patient following the instructions on the electrode package. Place the black electrode on the anterior left chest at the cardiac apex in the V2-V3 ECG electrode position. Place the red electrode on the posterior left chest below the shoulder blade and to the left of the spine. Push the pacer button to activate the pacemaker. The status display will now show the pacing rate instead of the heart rate, and current in milliamps instead of joules available. At power up, the pacing rate is preset at 40 beats per minute and the current at 0 milliamps. If intrinsic beats are present, adjust ECG size until the sense marker is seen on each QRS. Adjust the QRS volume until a beep is heard with each QRS complex. If the patient is asystolic, omit this step. Select the pacing rate from 40 to 170 beats per minute. Pushing the rate button will increase or decrease the rate in increments of 10. Push the start-stop button to begin pacing. The light to the left of the start-stop button will flash off with each pacing stimulus. An upright pace marker, or spike, will be seen on the ECG display with each pacing stimulus. Increase the current slowly in 5 or 20 milliamp increments while observing for capture. The patient should be assessed for both electrical and mechanical capture. Skeletal muscle twitching should be expected, but it does not indicate cardiac capture. Mechanical or ventricular capture is evidenced by signs of improved cardiac output. Palpate for a carotid or femoral pulse. Check for improved blood pressure and increased level of consciousness. Electrical capture is assessed by observing the ECG display and is usually evidenced by a wide QRS and a tall T wave. In some patients, capture may be less obvious, noted only by a change in QRS configuration. During pacing, the patient should be observed at all times. Conscious patients may complain of discomfort. Analgesia and/or sedation may be needed. To terminate pacing at any time, push the start-stop button. Pushing the charge button or selecting the paddles mode will also terminate pacing. If the patient requires defibrillation during pacing, select energy and push the charge button. The pacer will automatically turn off and the defibrillator will charge to the selected energy level. Defibrillate as described previously. Do not place defibrillator paddles over pacing electrodes. Doing so could present a fire hazard. The code summary critical event record allows documentation of ECG data during resuscitation and routine monitoring. The code summary memory stores approximately 20 critical events, including pre- and post-shock ECG data, user-initiated recordings, and pacemaker recordings. Once the LIFEPAK 10 is powered up, Code Summary begins storing critical information. Push the Code Summary button at any time to retrieve the stored data. It will retain data for 5 minutes after the LIFEPAK 10 has been turned off. To notify the user that all information has been printed, Summary Complete is annotated on the final segment. Printing the Code Summary report does not interfere with updating, nor does it clear the memory. Let's take a look at the Code Summary formats. The first section of the printout is an overview of the use of the device. It includes a space to write the patient's name, the date, the time power was turned on, the total number of shocks delivered, the total time that the patient was paced, elapsed time from power up to the time of the Code Summary printout, and a space for comments. The defibrillation format is printed for each shock delivered. The information preamble includes a space for the patient's name, a defibrillation label, the date, the sequential number of the shock and the time of the energy delivered, the number of joules selected, and a sync mode label for synchronized shocks. Following the preamble is 3 seconds of pre-shock ECG and 6 seconds of post-shock ECG, annotated with lead and gain settings. The recorded ECG format summarizes operator-initiated recorder usage. The information preamble includes a space for the patient's name, a recorded ECG label, the date and time the recorder was activated, and the heart rate. Following the preamble is 6 seconds of ECG data, which includes 3 seconds before and 3 seconds after the recorder was activated. ECG lead and gain settings are annotated. The pacing format is printed each time pacing is initiated and the pacing controls are set for at least 10 seconds. If the pacing controls are changed after 10 seconds, another pacing ECG strip will be entered into Code Summary. The information preamble includes a space for the patient's name, a paced ECG label, the date, the time the pacer was activated or the controls were adjusted, pacing rate in beats per minute, and current in milliamps. Following the preamble are 6 seconds of pacing data with lead and gain settings. The arrows at the bottom mark each pacing stimulus. The Code Summary critical event record will be interrupted whenever the recording mode is activated, the batteries are switched, or the defibrillator is charged. If it's interrupted, it will continue to store information, and when it's reactivated, it will print Summary Resumed and reprint the last segment and all other information it has stored. If Code Summary's memory capacity is exceeded, information is prioritized, first by defibrillation, next by pacing, and then by recorded ECG. The optional fast patch adapter lets you use fast patch disposable defibrillation electrodes with your LIFEPAK 10. These electrodes allow you to monitor, defibrillate, or cardiovert. To install the adapter, remove the standard paddles from their storage area and insert the fast patch adapter. Place the standard paddles back into the fast patch adapter. Snap the cable ends onto the defibrillation electrodes. Apply the defibrillation electrodes to clean, dry skin in the standard apex sternum position. The cable snaps are labeled for easy reference. Select the paddles mode by pushing Lead Select. This will provide a Lead 2 signal for monitoring. To defibrillate, leave the standard paddles in the fast patch adapter and follow the usual procedures for selecting the energy and charging the defibrillator. After warning others to stand clear of the patient and the bed, push both discharge buttons simultaneously to discharge the defibrillator. Remote or hands-off defibrillation eliminates the need for gel or paste, thus reducing the risk of arcing across the chest. Also, by placing defibrillation electrodes on high-risk patients, it can save valuable defibrillation setup time. This device should not be used in oxygen-enriched environments or in the presence of flammable agents or anesthetics. Such use presents a possible fire or explosion hazard. Do not immerse the device in water or other fluids. Doing so may damage the device and may cause a fire or shock hazard. Clean the defibrillator paddles thoroughly after each use. Buildup of gel could produce a shock hazard to the user. Clean the paddle storage area anytime it's soiled with gel. Clean the LIFEPAK 10 and its accessories with mild soap and water. Do not use alcohol or acetone. Thank you for choosing Physio Control. This concludes the LIFEPAK 10 in-service video. For further information on the LIFEPAK 10, please refer to the operating instruction manual. If you'd like additional information on defibrillation or non-invasive pacing, please contact the Physio Control Marketing Department at 1-800-426-8047.